Greetings, everyone. This is the show where I talk about those smaller but still memorable labels that came and went without a trace or were absorbed into a big conglomerate or one of the other things. This is Labelnova. I'm TC Kirkham, Kirkham Report, and TKR Video Central. And as always, I put the vote to you guys to pick this show's label. And the results surprised me, I have to admit. I did not expect this one to win, but it did, and so that is what we will be doing. We will be discussing the history of Mirage Records. Mirage was a label that lasted from 1980 to 1986. This is the first label of the 80s that we've looked at. Everything else was based in or around the 70s mostly. Mirage was created by Jerry and Bob Greenberg in 1980, distributed originally by Atlantic and later by Atlantic's sister label Echo. Over the course of 6 years, they mostly concentrated on dance music. In fact, so much so that their biggest successes over the years came on the R&B and dance charts. Quite a few things by the label were never released as 7-inch singles, which is why they never hit the Hot 100. Quite a few of them were released exclusively as 12-inch singles, which weren't included with the Hot 100 until 1992, which seems a really long time for them to be doing that. Mirage was never a huge success on the pop chart, but they did have a few crossover hits, and one actual big hit did hit the top 10. 2 others hit the top 40, and there were quite a few between the 41 and 100 and the bubbling under chart. But as I said, most of the music that they did was popular on the R&B and dance charts. Whereas this show looks at the Hot 100, we'll just talk about those as we go along. Some of them were bigger on the dance chart than they were on the pop chart, no question about that. But they also dabbled in other things. They did dabble in soundtracks, for instance, releasing a number of soundtracks in 80, 81, and 82, most notably soundtracks from The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia and Soup for One, both of which produced Hot 100 hits. There were, although not big Hot 100 hits, there were excursions into country music. There were excursions into big band music, and they did feature several acts that didn't really click big until later when the acts had moved on to a larger label. Now, Mirage, a lot of their catalog is still available. It's now distributed on Unidisc, which is a Universal Records label, but the actual label ceased to be in 1986. There were no other new releases. They've made a couple of attempts to revive it without success, and we're not going to go into those. Both of them lasted less than a year, both in the mid-90s, and they didn't go anywhere. So we're going to focus on that golden period between 1980 and 1986. One thing I did figure out from doing this show was the number of acts that became popular later, or that had been popular before and would become even bigger later, that had their first major releases on Mirage. I had no idea Whitesnake was together as early as 1980. Kim didn't either, and Kim's a huge Whitesnake and David Coverdale fan. I also didn't know Godley and Cream released a couple of solo albums over there, or from 10cc. That was interesting as well. There were some names you might be surprised to pop up on the Mirage list, as we'll see in the montage here in a moment. But more than not, these artists came and went in a time frame that was quintessentially the 80s. Mirage Records is definitely an 80s record label. Whereas, the stuff we've looked at before, Chelsea Records, Private Stock Records, even RSO Records, the music was decidedly 70s. On Mirage, no. almost from the very beginning, they were leading the pack with dance music, and they had quite a few. They were the first act to really, our first label to really embrace freestyle, with Shannon and a couple of other acts. They were the first label to try and negotiate paths through the new wave, even though they didn't make a really big impact in that area. And as I said, they did make a few forays into the country music field. The one out of place thing, which you'll see in the medley, the montage and the non-charting singles, was Tony Tennille. Tony Tennille recorded a couple of solo albums in the mid-1980s. They were both big band music, as opposed to the pop stuff she was doing with Captain and Tennille in the 70s and early 80s. It made no sense for an album like More Than You Know, which came out in 1985, 84 or 85, to be hitting the stores from Mirage at the same time as some of their biggest dance acts. It just seemed out of place. It's probably why it didn't do well, although the album is magnificent. I'm unabashed Captain Tennille fan here, but it definitely didn't fit Mirage's profile for the time. So it's going to be a shorter show. There wasn't as much done for this label as there was for other labels we've looked at. But there are some interesting artifacts. A few minor hits, some lower chart singles that weren't too bad but didn't do that well, and a couple which became cult hits thanks to MTV or Nick Rocks or Night Tracks or one of those shows. And a few that just boggle the mind. Not quite as badly as Playboy or 20th Century or Private Stock, but still, for the time frame we're talking here, 1980 to 1986, it boggles the mind. So sit back, relax. We'll talk about some of the artists and the music on the backside. This is the musical history of Mirage Records from 1980 to 1986.
have been around. Out in my yard, I love my truck. Well, she's right outside. I ain't got much luck, but I sure got a ride. It don't matter who lived, it don't matter who lied. I got my truck right by my side.
She's coming, you just can't hold back your loving. You know you can't resist her. You can't hold back, don't fall for her. She's coming, you just can't hold back your loving. That girl is out to get you. Superwoman, bring your arm, run. When you're by yourself, someone else.
Why must I be so depressed? I feel I'm not like the rest. No, 'cause I won't.
Why does your love hurt so much? Why does your love hurt so much? Don't know why. You know I loved you, baby. All the
Oh, baby, you are in my system. I just want you to know that. Oh, you're in my system. Got me burning, baby. Oh, you're in my system. I'm always gonna love you. If love means forever, I'm always gonna want you. I don't think I could ever just forget the love we had. It's not the same when she's here, because I'm falling in love with you. It's the easiest thing for me to do. Yes, I'm falling in love with you. It's true. I lie awake at night and think about you. I wake up to another love.
okay. For the first year, we showed each other.
It's time that I am free, but I need you strong for me. Don't go giving up hope now. We'll keep doing just fine. Give you everything until I could die. I said, take another piece of my heart. Oh, take another piece of my heart. Oh, take another piece of my heart.
I should have known you'd always keep me waiting for those wedding bells. Those wedding bells. Oh, we could talk all night, but you won't understand. The only words you wanna hear are, do you take this man?
We want the money. I think I'll write him. I'll say, dear Mr. President, it's getting hard to pay my rent. Out of unemployment time, scraping every nickel and dime. Whoa.
the stains on your clothes. Didn't they tell you about the shape I'm in this condition of carnal sin? And when I heard, you know, that she'll take care, I need her more than ever, just because she does.
That's quite an eclectic mix. I mean, only one big hit, Shannon's Let the Music Play. The other two songs that charted in the top 40 barely cracked the top 40, even though Robin Gibb got quite a bit of airplay with Boys Who Fall in Love. I remember hearing that on the radio all the time and being rather disappointed it didn't get higher on the chart, because I always liked that. It's one of my favorite solo songs by him. And Charlie, I'd loved since Killer Cut in 1979, but they never seemed to catch on, despite changing labels several times. We heard them on an earlier label as well, Labelnova. They never really caught on here the way they should have, although it's inevitable, is their only top 40 hit. But the acts that came in below, with some of the songs below, probably happened because of the time frame. Shannon's Do You Want to Get Away was all over Columbus, Ohio radio when I was living out there in 1985. It, didn't make it into the top 40. It peaked at 40 something, but it was still a pretty big hit. And I'm pretty sure it made the top 10 on a couple of the stations I was listening to. I know it did well on the Kirkham Report. So did Yo Little Brother by Nolan Thomas, although that song, as I mentioned on Obscuria about a year ago when we played One Bad Apple, there's some controversy behind it. Nolan Thomas, now using his real name, Marco Calfa, C-A-L-K-A-L-F-A, is a well-known photographer, fashion photographer, and now in his mid-40s or early 50s, I would think. He swears he did not do the vocal on Yo Little Brother, just the rest of the album, like One Bad Apple, and another single we didn't include, Too White, because he was already in the 41 to 100 section. He swears he didn't record Yo Little Brother, and yet if you listen to them side by side, they sound exactly the same. The vocals sound exactly the same. I sincerely doubt that they are actually a different person. This is the kind of claim that Danny Bonaducci made about I'll Be Your Magician, even though when you listen to his stuff on that album, which he says he didn't record, it does sound like him when you hear him singing for real. I don't know where it's going. I don't know why Calfa got out of the music industry. I do know I was a very big fan of that album. It's the only album he released, and it was a really good mix of dance pop and truly one of the unsung heroes of the label. Of course, it was originally associated with Emergency Record Productions, which is the same label that connected with a number of the other acts on Mirage, and that was the home label of the production team for most of them. Still, over the years, Mirage had done pretty good, and the music isn't all bad. It's not all great, but it's not all bad. I'm, as I said, fond of Shannon. I like both of her albums. Nolan Thomas. I did not know Carl Weathers had released a single back in the 1981 era, which would have been around the time of Rocky 2? Rocky 3? I also got onto Mirage early because of Christy McNichol's presence on The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia. I Need You Strong for Me, which didn't chart on the Billboard chart, was a #1 Kirkham Report hit. Big surprise there, right? Overall, Mirage is always going to be known as a dance label, regardless of the fact that they did try to get out into other areas, especially that ill-gotten foray into the big band stuff with Toni Tennille, although I can't fault her work on that album. It was an odd choice for a label for her. They really hit big with the R&B fans and the dance club fans, even though they weren't probably all that big of chart hits on those charts. I looked up a few. And the Carl Weathers could have been a hit all over again had they decided to play it. It was featured in season 4 of Stranger Things, and we all know what happened to Kate Bush after that. I'm surprised they didn't give it more of a push. Mirage is an interesting history. It's not a very long one. There's not a lot there, and quite a few things are hard to find, but it's still a fun label, and I always enjoyed a lot of the music that came out on the label, even though some of it wasn't my taste. I loved Nolan Thomas, I loved Shannon, I loved Charlie. They were all great. Robin Gibbs, Secret Agent, is a terrific album. It's going to go down in the history as a footnote for Atlantic Records. Atlantic absorbed the label in 1986, or I guess Atco did, and some of the acts moved over to Atco with later releases. But it is something to be remembered for its success in the dance and R&B areas, even though it didn't do that well on the pop chart. And they did have their own share of memorable songs. I mean, you can still hear Let the Music play on oldies, 80s radio stations because it was such a big hit. I'd rather hear Do You Want to Get Away, which I always like better. And I love Shannon's cover of Foreigner's Urgent also. I really don't know how history is going to treat Mirage. There are some acts that will be always remembered as disco stars, dance club stars. But overall, it wasn't really that memorable. Even though I have fond memories of a number of the songs, particularly the Nolan Thomas and the Shannon. And I'm sure everybody else who loved 80s music has a fond spot for the whole label as a whole as well. Hopefully, we'll see more about it in the future. Maybe Mirage will make a return. Atlantic owns it. They've tried twice to reactivate it. It didn't go anywhere. Hasn't even been reactivated as an oldie label. We'll see. I'd like to see it come back and start doing today's dance music. Just no more forays into big band music, okay? That was just weird. So we'll do another label in 2 weeks. We'll have a poll up this weekend for you to check out. That Mirage Records, like I said, surprised the hell out of me. I hopefully am doing an adequate job with this. I get lots of good views and lots of good notices and comments on this show. I enjoy putting together the montages, which are not always easy and to clear. In this case, it was pretty okay. But I really think that a lot of those songs deserve to be remembered better than they will be overall, just like a lot of the labels we've talked about on this show. As I said, the poll will be up on Sunday. You'll have until Thursday to give me an answer. I need a little bit of extra time to do everything, obviously, because this is a few hours late. But in any case, I hope that you will participate. Let us know what labels you'd like to see. You can email me, you can leave a comment, and you can vote in the poll. And trying to do ones from the 70s and 80s that, remember, they had to last less than 10 years long, have a variety of hits, a variety of semi-hits, and a variety of non-hits that we can talk about and go over. And I hope to hear from you on that. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. And if you have, thank you very much. I much appreciate it. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. It does help the algorithm. Please share what you're finding here if you've got other fans that are interested in labels and such like that, because I'm interested not just in the labels and their history, but their design, how they look. I was never a big fan of the Mirage logo. But then again, I have a soft spot for a red Akebono, Boku, whatever it is, with the word letters RSO on it. I hope that you will please leave a comment, because I can't do this show without you guys letting me know how I do. And as I said, feel free to go on and tell me ideas that you'd like to see, because if I've got the time and I'm taking the time to research and I am having a blast doing these shows, I will do it. I do have plans to do Casablanca after the first of the year, so you don't need to subscribe. Don't need to suggest that. Casablanca is going to be a two-parter for sure because there's just so much there, and I want to do the early years and the disco years because they're distinct eras. And we're going to do a few of the other labels I definitely want to do, but mostly the choice is up to you. And anything you'd like me to comment on or see what you think about it, let me know because I'm here. For Labelnova, I'm TC Kirkham, TKR Video Central and the Kirkham Report. We'll go down that label rabbit hole again in 2 weeks. See you soon. Ciao, baby.